Thank you all for being here today, everyone. And I apologize, I'm a minute late. I had to find the link. It was in a different place than it normally is for me. So thanks for your time and your patience as well. Let me just make sure my phone is turned off and we're all set. So we are going to be talking today about 3 steps to help you create more meaningful career goals in general. I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author, and we love presenting content like this to help people create more meaningful goals for them that they're more likely to work towards, achieve. They're more motivated, and they're also the right goals for them to be working on at the end of the day. That's where we're going to focus on today. So let's go ahead and dive in. So I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author. I've been coaching and training since 2002 and have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt and a master's degree from the University of Illinois. And as we progress through our topics and advice today, one of the things that I always like to share with people or recommend is we're going to give you a lot of different tools and advice to help you create more meaningful goals that you're more likely to achieve, and they're the right goals for you. But I would recommend that you pick and choose what makes the most sense for you based on your situation, where you need to focus more. So for example, if you already have a sense of what your career values are, you may focus on instead, okay, how do I create the right goals aligned with those? So you'll see what I mean as we're talking today. We try to make this advice as real, down to earth, tangible, practical as possible. But pick and choose what makes the most sense for you, please, and your situation. We are recording today, and if you've just joined us, you will receive a copy of the recording. Just FYI, you'll get that automatically, so you don't have to do anything. Email us, it will come to you automatically. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about discarding external definitions and why that's a really important step in order to create the right goals for you professionally. We're going to talk next about clarifying your values and how that can help you develop and determine the right career goals. And then finally, we want you to be thinking about your strengths as well when you're identifying and writing out your career goals too. If you take these 3 steps, you're going to have clearer goals, more meaningful ones that are the right ones for you, that will move you in a trajectory on your career path for your professional life that's going to be the right fit for you. So here's the deal here and why this is so important, and then we'll go ahead and dive in our few steps. Clear goals make a really big difference. Studies show that 50% of coworkers who were surveyed, or workers, I should say, clear goals boost their motivation and their sense of purpose. So the clearer, more specific your goal is, the better off you're going to be. Now, we're going to add to that today, because we would argue that if you align your goals and establish your goals using our ideal career model, they're going to be that much more effective as well. The good news is that you can establish goals and find a sense of passion, purpose, or meaning, however you see it for you, into your work life. And the other good news, I feel, is that employers are listening more than they have in the past to their employees wanting that sense of meaning, have a sense of mission or attachment to the mission of the organization. And a couple of things that we want you to do as a very first step is you want to be careful when you're establishing your professional goals. Anytime you say to yourself, or you find yourself trying to talk yourself into that goal, for example, or if you're noticing that you're saying to yourself, well, I really should put this down, we want you to ditch those and get rid of them. This sort of silly running joke in coaching is you shouldn't should on yourself. When you hear the word should in your inner, dialogue, thinking, et cetera, you need to watch out for that, because it may mean that you're talking yourself into something or coming up with a goal that someone else is overlaying on you that may not be totally true to you. So get rid of those shoulds, pay attention to them. Then we want you, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, to align your goals with your values, your strengths, and each component or piece of our ideal career model. Now, here's a good metaphor for thinking about your goals, and then we'll get into our first step. Think about you and your goals as like a compass. You need to stay on track with things. And Compasses, as we know, are used for orientation and direction. And what happens to us in our personal and professional lives is problems arise, and we don't feel like we're on the right track sometimes when there's interference or deviation from what is truly meaningful or important to us. When we start to adopt goals that someone else told us we should have, for example, versus ones that really have meaning for us. And this deviation can be intentional or unintentional. Sometimes, plenty of times, we don't do it on purpose. It just happens along the way. Stuff comes up in our lives and we're not as focused on like our true authenticity, what's really meaningful for us. So we have to pay attention to this and think about our goals and make sure that our sense of balance and mental health comes from the inside out versus the outside in. So we want to be careful if we ever notice ourselves, the shoulds we already mentioned, but also if you notice yourself comparing you and your situation to others, you need to be careful of that because that's a trap too. You need to pay attention to external definitions that you may have adopted for yourself over time that are not true for you. And also societal norms can be problematic as well. Again, only if they don't work for us. If they do, okay, fine. So let's look at step number 1. The thing that we want you to do first, or would recommend, is if you can take a few minutes, this doesn't have to take that long, but you probably want to think about it over the course of a few days because other ideas or thoughts may come up for you, is to identify any external definitions. Where are we living our lives according to something else that's not totally true for us? These could be external definitions, limiting belief, or rules, so to speak, that don't truly work for us. And when you look in the middle of this next slide here, what happens to us, understandably, is we get caught up in our daily lives and we start to define ourselves, if you will, based on external things like the role that we play at work, our profession, our salary, our strengths, etc. And what we want to do is make sure that we're defining ourselves from the inside out instead of the other way around. So what we want to be looking at first as a first exercise or action step is to write down any inherited values, norms, definitions, or priorities that have come from society or family or somewhere else, friends, etc., that don't fit for you either anymore or never did in the first place. We had a client once, for example, when we asked her why she became a lawyer, she said point blank, well, all of my family were either doctors or lawyers. She hadn't thought it through as much as she could have. So quick example here at the bottom and the middle of this slide is one of these kind of things that we hear, I think, a lot in our society, which I think is a good thing and makes sense, is we shouldn't work on vacation, right? Well, I tried that when I was first starting out in my coaching practice, and it didn't work for me. It made things more stressful for me when I came back to work. So what I have found is the definition for me that is best is to stay on top of the most important urgent items. Check my email every day while I'm gone. I'm not going to spend hours on it, but I feel so much better if I do some of those things while I'm gone. I don't have that sense when I come back of everything is just hitting me over the head. The other reason why I actually enjoy staying on top of some things while I'm on vacation is I love what I do. So my work actually grounds me, and that's what we're looking for you as well. So step number 1 is to identify and then work to discard these external definitions. Remove them, push them aside, recreate new beliefs for yourself or new definitions. And if you look at this slide, we want to remove those. We want your sense of self and balance to come from the inside out versus outside in. And as much as you possibly can, try to set your schedule and actions according to these internal definitions as much as possible. And here's the good news on the bottom right of this slide. I know this may feel a little bit overwhelming, like, oh, this is a lot. How do I steer my ship in a different direction? What we have actually found with our clients is that small changes you make can equal really big results. So you can take small action items or action steps, I should say, and please know that it's going to make a really big difference. And there's also this kind of snowball effect that comes up as well. Okay. So we want you to make sure that you're discarding any of these external definitions because, as we all know, external definitions can change. We might lose our jobs. We might have to take a step back in our career to take care of an aging family member. Different types of things come up. So our goal at the end of the day is to be more like this Mobius strip, which means our internal world and sense of self flows or mirrors our external world as much as possible, and having that harmony between those things too. Now, we realize that this isn't going to be perfect every single second of the day. Move in this direction and you'll get into a better spot as much as you possibly can. And the action steps related to this first step we would recommend would be do some self-assessment, like we already talked about. Where do you think you're defining yourself maybe incorrectly? And you can think instead about, okay, what does success mean to me? What does it look like to me at this point in my career? We love it when our clients interview other people, like we suggest they do, and ask them what they see are their values. What adjectives come to mind when you think of me? What strengths do you think I have that are my greatest strengths? Write yourself a new story. Where do you want to see yourself in 10 years? What qualities do you want to have, as well as goals achieved? And how do we move in that direction? And then finally, fulfillment, which we'll talk about more in our second step. Write down what fills you, what you're passionate about, and do you honor those things on a regular enough basis so that you're creating these more meaningful goals and living a more fulfilling life and professional life as well. Step number 2 is to identify your values. And there's lots of different ways that we have our clients do this, and we'll talk about this in the next couple of slides. One of the things that we'll have people do is dig underneath their dreams, their interests, their passions, the things that they do outside of work even that they really enjoy, like hobbies. Even if those things are not realistic career paths for you, what components of those things could you incorporate into your career path now? So for example, I'll use me. There's a reason why there's a mermaid on this slide. When I was a kid, I grew up in Florida, and I went to Weeki Wachee Springs a ton, and I wanted to be a mermaid. I thought that was the coolest thing going. And while being a mermaid wasn't the most practical career path for me when I was figuring this out about 20 years ago, I realized when I was identifying my values as an adult that some of my values were actually reflected in that childhood dream, and they're still reflected in the hobbies that I pursue today. I have a value of risk. I felt like being a mermaid, swimming around like that, no, air tank seemed kind of risky. I also have a value of creativity and educating people through entertaining them a little bit as well, doing a bit of both. And that's exactly what this mermaids were doing. They were educating people about the ocean, et cetera, et cetera. So even though those things that you're passionate about or hobbies may not be things you want to pursue in your work life, think about how you can overlay some of those values into your current career path. Or do you need to change career paths in order to make that happen? Some other ways to define your values, which is basically the way to define fulfillment for yourself, is to write about what success means to you. We talked about that one a moment ago. We have our clients do what we call a peak experience exercise, where they write down a moment or a period of time when they felt lit up inside, a time in their life. It could be a long time ago or more recently, and to write down what was cool about that for them. That can give them some clues to their possible values. As part of step number 2, we also recommend establishing goals and more meaningful ones based on the life balance wheel that we have shown on this slide. You'll see a lot of these all over the internet if you Google them. But we use this life balance wheel with our clients with these specific categories. And we would also recommend to create the most meaningful goals, helping you move in a direction of greater quote unquote balance for you between these different areas of your life and what's most important to you can be really, really helpful. We recommend with this wheel, number 1, you can adjust the categories if that makes sense for you. Number 2, we want you to rate your current state and give yourself a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, how well each of those areas are in balance for you and how happy you are with each of those components. And then draw a line between these. And imagine if this was a wheel on your car, it wouldn't go so well, right? So it's really helpful as part of this balance wheel exercise is to define your future state too. So you give yourself your current rating, but then think about and journal or create a vision board for what it would be like if each of those areas was in perfect balance for you. And we recommend assessing your life balance wheel on a quarterly basis because things will change. You will make choices sometimes professionally and personally where your life is out of balance, but you're choosing it to be that way because you're trying to achieve a specific goal, like obtaining a certification, planning an event, something like that. Okay. So the goal is to keep in mind too that life balance is fluid. There is no one way to define it for every single person. It's what makes the most sense for you. And realize that it's going to go up and down. The goal is not to have it be perfect every single second of the day. That puts too much pressure on it, but try to move in the direction for or to as great of balance or as best as you can, having that ideal sense of balance as much as you can. Let's talk about step number 3. And this would be to create more meaningful goals, would be to also tap into your strengths. So we do want you to look at your values first, because if you align your professional goals as much as you can with your values, they're going to be the right ones for you. They're going to be more meaningful to you, and you're going to be more motivated and therefore more likely to achieve those goals. And writing down very specifically what your goals are, aligned with your values and why you're writing them based on that value, that helps them be more clear for you too. So step number 3 is to tap into your strengths. And you've probably seen this quote before: everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to always think that it's stupid, right? So you need to be establishing or identifying goals that complement and leverage your strengths. Now, I know this may seem obvious, but I can't tell you how many times we'll have a client write down, well, in my performance review, my boss said I need to get better at XYZ. We assert that, yes, there are always areas that we need improvement professionally, and we should work on those to a certain extent. However, if you are naturally just not that good at something, we don't want you to spend the majority of your time focusing on trying to fix that. We want you to play to your strengths as much as possible. And as much as you can, have your workday be built around your strengths. Okay. So when you think about identifying your strengths, first of all, a self-assessment can be really helpful. Write down those activities where you lose track of time, where you tend to get the highest ratings in performance reviews, etc. Second way to identify and really get clear on your strengths is the Strengths Finder assessment. That's the one we typically use with our clients, and we love it. Interviewing other people, we talked about that before. What do you do better than most people that they know? We tend to discount what comes naturally to us. So we don't count certain things as actual strengths because we say, oh, well, everyone's good at that, right? And I promise you, they're not. And they're not as good as you in the unique way that you play out those strengths too. And then finally, as you're thinking about your goals, make a list of those strengths that you would like to utilize more frequently and how so. Because a lot of people, let's say, for example, could have a value and a strength of mentoring. But what does that mean for you? Is it mentoring one person at a time? Is it mentoring a team? What would you be mentoring them on? How would you be playing that out? Is it all the time? Some of the time. So thinking as much as possible and getting as specific as possible with your goals is going to help ensure that you achieve them. Now, our final slide before we start to wrap up for today at the top of the hour is we want all of our clients to align their goals very clearly with our ideal career model. And that's what's listed on this slide right now. So our ideal career model is something I created a long time ago because I realized that we wanted or needed something to help people know what are the criteria that they needed to include or consider, if you will, in determining what their ideal career goals would be. How do they move their career in a direction that would be rewarding and the right fit for them? And how to help people identify and brainstorm different career options that would be a fit for them. So we also want you to take a look at each piece of this model and start out with the fulfillment piece first. We've talked about that already today. This is where your values come in, how you define success, those types of things for you. So align your professional goals with what would be most meaningful and fulfilling to you. We want you to then look at enjoyment. This helps you think about what are the other enjoyable tasks that I'd like to incorporate into my job. They may not be the main things that I do from fulfillment, but for example, with me as a coach, coaching and educating people about their right career path, that's the core of what I do. That belongs in fulfillment. The enjoyment piece for me is I actually love giving presentations like this, creating webinar slides. That honors my value also of creativity. Those are things, though, that I would not want to do all day, every single day. I don't want to just, for example, be a presenter presenting someone else's content or just the same content all day long. So that belongs in my enjoyment piece where it's part of what I do, not the main thing that I do all day, every day. Then we want you to look at your strengths and make sure your goals align with those. We've talked about those already. Take a look at your past education and your past experience. So what are the educational, criteria or experiences you've had that you want to bring forward and you want to leverage? And what kind of educational goals do you want to set for yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Same thing with your past experience, thinking about what new experiences you want to add to your repertoire. That can help you create more meaningful and the right goals for you. And then finally, we want you to think about these 3 last pieces, not because they're not important, but we like to start with fulfillment for a reason, because it's the foundation that helps people really create those most meaningful goals. And then they might want to make adjustments to it based on these other ones. But you want to think about, okay, what are some soft skills that you want to be developing over the next 5 to 10 years or the next year, et cetera? So personality-wise and soft skills-wise, where do you want to leverage those skills you already have and ones that you want to work on? Is it communication skills? Is it change management? Is it managing conflict? Is it emotional intelligence? And then finally, think about the goals that you want to have for work environment. Where's the ideal place for you to work? What changes do you want to make to your office space, or what is your ideal office for you? What's your ideal culture, location, et cetera? And finally, what are your compensation goals? Those are not just meaningful, they are our bread and butter, right? We have to pay our bills. So putting down what you want your compensation goals to be, including benefits and everything else that you want to have, will help you achieve those goals, be more clear about it. And if you think about the compensation that you'd like to have and why that is, that can help you as well. You'll be more likely to achieve it versus just throwing out a general number of, oh, well, I'd like to make 6 figures. Let's get more specific there. And we have our clients write down actually why they want to make that specific amount of money. What are the things they want to do with it? All right, so this is our last slide for today. I wanted to just remind everyone listening in later on, listening on YouTube, et cetera, that we always offer a free consult to learn more about our coaching services and find out if it's the right fit for you, how we can help you, ask any questions. We do give a discount for GSU alumni. They are our co-hosts today and partners in presenting our webinar today. And if you'd like to get more information about any of that, you can email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. I would be more than happy to speak with you about how we can help you, if we're the right fit, etc. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. We greatly appreciate your time. Remember to look out for the email with the recording, and good luck with identifying and working towards those meaningful career goals for you. Have a great day.
The webinar has ended. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.